All right, welcome to the next video. This is the Defect Cost Report video. This will showcase you what a Defect Cost Report is, a DCR we call them. We have these acronyms for each of our services. The DCR is a developed report where we take your home inspection report from you and we develop a separate cost analysis that will give your client access to cost-related information. Few notes about this before we dive in. This is pretty much AI generated. We are, not going to review or evaluate every line item of this report. When I review it or my team reviews it, it is not an engineering analysis. And so if you want it to be an engineering analysis, no problem. We will charge you more for that. And I can look at every single line and make my personal assessment based on images that we see personally and the costs that I'm aware of and know based on RS Means manual and other types of cost related information that we derive. AI is an amazing tool. It's got its limits, and I'm sure this video, as the speed of what AI can do, will be expired and done within the next year. But this is what we provide. It's a very systematic approach. It takes into account all of the prompting that we've done and developed with AI. It takes into consideration a common and consistent format, and it is better than anything that you probably could produce by throwing it into ChatGPT or the likes. The reason is because it knows about geographic area. It takes into consideration a plethora of cost-related information that we have trained our model on, and the formatting is really good because there are situations where you may have individual repairs, like, for example, a good example that is a water heater. You go in, you say that there's rust on this and there's a bad that and there's a damaged this, and by the time you add up each individual repair, you're far exceeding the cost of just replacing it with a new water heater. So all of our DCR takes that into consideration, and I will show you that. But we don't hide, and we really don't ever hide, the use of AI in our report writing and what we specifically use AI for. Our other engineering stuff is really not AI derived, and we certainly use AI in some cases to pull information from the report that we need. But the DCR is specifically AI with a lot of backing from our back end. But this is an example of a defect cost report. You'll see that your logo will go here. We don't put me as the inspector. I'm not going to stamp it. Again, if that's something that you want, we don't offer that, through our normal service. But if you want an engineering report because it's for litigation or for a very serious matter, or they just need the engineer to go through everything, we have done that many times. The defect cost report comes with a very first cost summary table. You'll see that you get line items 1 through 11, and these are the specific elements of or categories of types of repairs that we find. Areas where the DCR is not great is foundation, number one, because foundation, we're not prescribing a specific solution. So if we call out foundation problems, then typically what our software will do is put in a cost for further evaluation, or it may provide a general cost of $5,000 as a lump sum bucket option for future evaluations and repairs, depending on severity. So foundation is probably the one where you really should check the individual repair costs and full replacement. And if it gets complicated, if you think foundation is a problem, if the client is seriously concerned about foundation and the reimbursement from the seller about foundation, these are things where an EFE is what you would hire us to do. That comes with a specific repair plan, specific cost information, and a lot more validity around around the specific repair, instead of just saying, hey, there are these general problems. If you get into, so we do 2 columns. One is an individual repair column, which I said represents kind of all of the deficiencies added up and stuck into the individual repair bucket. And then we have a full replacement column. If something is in need of a full replacement and you call it out in your inspection report as a full replacement, if you say things like it is at the end of its useful life, that would be an indicator that that thing needs to be replaced. If you call out it needs to be replaced. We also do things like single pane windows. If you say the whole home is single pane windows, then we will estimate basically the amount of windows that you might have on a home that size, provide a general cost for all of the windows to be replaced under a full replacement category, and then give you just a generic cost. This is repair. This has to be teed up with your client as, in fact, we even say it here. It's an approximate estimate generated through AI, industry data, and general assumptions. It's not actual costs, and actual costs may be based on local labor, material pricing, scope of the work, site conditions, how picky your client is, all of these other things. And so this is just us taking a bunch of photos and a bunch of text and a bunch of information, running it through a model that tells us what we think that it likely is costs. And it's somewhat defendable, but if you suspect an issue, then go get a contractor's bid for it, go get an actual quote for it, or have a discussion through the process of the real estate acquisition process. Have a discussion internally about what you think it may cost. It's really not rocket science. And typically, a real estate agent or someone involved in the transaction, even the client's dad, may be able to tell you if the cost is reasonable or if it's not reasonable. We will make changes to the DCR if you want them changed. And in fact, sometimes we'll even allow you to make changes because it's your work product in many senses. We, in this case, are kind of like the software guys. I'm not stamping this as my engineering work product, and you're providing it to the client. We can do that at no cost also. I don't mind doing that. If we do that, I'm not going to give you access to make changes for Noble's, business at the top right. Obviously, there are there's clear lines to what we're willing and able to do. We're going to provide you with the numbers, and we're going to make sure they're in the right format. We generally agree high level that they make sense, and that we are going to then pass it to you and or your client to make sure that you like this, and this is a defendable bid sheet. We'll give you a cost breakdown. Here is just a general graph of the items and their costs, and then we get into the detailed cost information. What I like about this is that we are not just saying foundation problem $5,000. We're going to give you all of the specific approximations, the limitations, and what was assumed in these bullets underneath each price that we provide. So if we come down to, let's do roof, here's attic ladder door missing insulation. So the attic ladder door was called out as not having insulation. The pro tip is to add temporary weather stripping or a blanket cover to the door for now to reduce the draft. So you could do this as a DIY. The location is the attic. The approximate cost, $250. And the cost considerations are the assumptions that went into the cost. Cost for materials and labors for installation in the sample city assumes small area of work. Energy loss, the risk is energy loss and higher utility bills if unaddressed. And so through this text, we hope to give you a lot of information about where the cost was derived, what happens if you don't do it, can you DIY it, all of these things that help you to make a real determination as to whether or not this cost is a good approximation. We talked about foundation. If we're going to call out a certain dollar amount, we're going to tell you, what does that represent? Does that represent a number for further investigation, or does that represent a number for actual fix? So please use this. It's such a great tool, but it's not the answer to every problem. And it's certainly not, 100% accurate in every situation. You can also fool it. I mean, the reality is that if you take in your home inspection report, if you take 2 pictures of the GFCI outlets, and you write in there whole house needs GFCIs, we may catch that. Our software may catch that. Our software may not. It's very likely that it will, but it needs to be checked. So if you go to the electrical portion and you see that 3 GFCIs are costed out as a replacement when you specified a whole house and there's 10, let us know. We'll change the cost, or we'll change the model to better predict what is needed. But I just want to be very clear that this is as good as you. This, how do I say it? Noble makes no apologies for having things be a little bit wrong, AI generated, and overly generalized. You have to do your, and it's not really you as the partner, but the client and the agent have to do their work. We have tons of very specific limitations to what this is good for. It's super, super valuable. I can't get over the fact that it is, but it's also very limited in its capabilities to provide this level of detail for this kind of cost. We also provide an appendix, which is contractor bid sheets. We'll give you, like, if you want to actually go out and get this fixed, then we have bid sheets that actually type this information in. It's actually in our spec book, and we give you an attachment that has all this information. I don't have it in the sample, but it also contains a construction contract agreement between the person that wants to get this done and a potential contractor. And then it gives you a spec book in Word format so that you can spec out the individual repairs that need to be done. It's also filled with good information, like things you would overlook. Like, a lot of people will hire a contractor, for example, for a full renovation, and then they come home to the cheap switches on the electrical boxes, and you're like, well, I wanted the other type. And because you didn't specify that in the spec book, the contract, you've got nothing to hold the contractor to using cheaper materials, things they bought off Craigslist, or providing you, like, it goes into the texture of the sheetrock, it goes into the type of cabinets and the granite and all this other stuff. So our spec book is great for a client needing some hand holding to make sure that the contractor is actually doing what they said they're going to do. And if it's got these deficiencies listed in there as things that they need to get fixed, so that they can go from this cost report to an actual bid. The goal here is that if it's important, go get a real bid for it, because that will tell you the real cost that someone has looked at and is willing to do it for. I am not a contractor. I don't provide contractor recommendations. I don't provide real bids that are as accurate as a person looking at the project and providing costs. And I've said this 1,000 times, but I have to just caveat that with, this has a limited use case and it's really good for that use case. Please don't overlook what it's good for. With that, I think that's it. The defect cost report is a very budgetary item. It's also, something that we use to get the partner in the door, to start using our products, to start getting used to how you throw things around in the portal, because it's really quite a common thing that the client asks for pricing, and it's not super easy or available to get that pricing out of the report and into a format like this. We also, one note, mainly because of a competitor that I won't name, but you may know, we don't sell your client's information. So that's one reason why, although some competition may give this to you for free, they're also going to ask you for your client's information. And that's fine. We have no problem with that. Don't use us for this service if you don't want us for this service. No issue. But we're only going to take your client's name right here and the address of the property. We are not going to use this for any way. We're not a concierge service. We're not going to sell client information, and we're not going to call your client about fixing this information. So sometimes you can use the free service until you get a very particular client, and then maybe you want to use us for this, for one-offs or something. But anyways, that's the DCR. I appreciate it, and see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.